All right, we're live. All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Welcome everyone to another week of Truth Hour. And let me start off with a little quick disclosure. These bags that you see, I earned them. I'm going to be a little more reserved than you're used to seeing me because I'm a little under the weather, but I'm going to be fighting through it because, as I said to Shonda earlier, the show must go on.
No.
And that's what it is. And when I say under the weather, I learned on Monday that I tested positive for COVID. So, yeah, I got a fun battle ahead of me. I don't wish this on anyone. It's not easy. All right, so we're going to cover actually just a few topics today, and we're going to finish up with a preview of the first presidential debate because it's going to be a doozy. And we'll talk about the topics that the commission has released. This one is going to be moderated by Chris Wallace, but we'll get there. We're going to start off with the biggest news to hit this weekend. The New York Times reporting that they got a hold of something that's been eluding us all these years. Trump's taxes. We finally got a hold of Trump's taxes. So, Shonda, when you learned that the president paid in 2016 $750, and to be clear, this is the year when he's running saying, vote for me because I'm a billionaire. Vote for me because I've built up this financial empire second to none. That's his favorite phrase, better than you've seen anywhere in the world. Vote for me because no one can make deals the way I can. So this same guy who's paid $750 in taxes, followed by in 2017 paying $750 in taxes, but he's allegedly a billionaire. What was your initial response?
To be honest, I mean, I feel like we've been here before, so I wasn't surprised. I'm not surprised because it feels like we're doing the same dance we did in 2015 and 2016 before the election, and so I wasn't surprised. Nor do I think a lot of other people are, because at this point, I mean, the only people to me that I would hope would react to this are his supporters. You know, because it says a lot in terms of, one, his character, integrity, and then again, it's the fact that you have the American people who have to, you know, there are people that are not making the same amount of money as Trump and are paying more in taxes. They paid more in taxes than him.
Yeah.
And so I feel as if the people that everyone should be in an uproar, but at this point, it's more so his supporters. Those are the ones who need to be the ones that are pushing back with the news that we received. How about you?
It's interesting. It's interesting. I never disbelieved. So during the campaign trail, all the times when he would claim I'm under audit, I can't release my taxes, I didn't disbelieve that because to me, it would be so much more of a headline if he were never under audit. And I think his closest advisors would have steered him away that as the reason for not releasing. That to me, it just sounded too implausible to not be true. However, with that being said, when I learned reading the New York Times article the reason that he's been under this decade-long audit, I was, again, not surprised, because I always assumed there was something nefarious in his economic dealings. So for those unaware, Trump is under this 10-year-long audit because there's a potential that he's committed fraud. Mm-hmm. We're talking, he received a $72.9 million tax refund. And if that number sounds outlandish to you, it should, because nobody receives that kind of tax refund. Mm-hmm. And it's to listen to commentary, people say, well, he played fast and loose with the tax system. No, I understand that wealthy people are going to make decisions.
Sorry, guys. I'm having some technical difficulties. Sorry.
I understand that people are going to make decisions that are in their personal financial well-being, right? Even when it comes to paying taxes. However, what he did, and he paid Ivanka over $700,000. Remember, people got to remember, the Trump Foundation is allegedly a nonprofit, right? Like, they have certain rules that they have to follow. Anyone that's helped start one or that's been affiliated with one, they have very strict rules that they have to adhere to. Mm-hmm. And so you can't pay your daughter almost $1 million in consulting fees when you're doing this. But so it's one thing to utilize the loopholes that exist. You do that, hey, more power to you. You got money. You were born into money. Good for you. Mm-hmm. Another thing, to intentionally skirt the law. So one of two things is true. In Joe Biden, it behooves Joe Biden to make this precise statement tonight. One of two things is true. Either, one, Donald Trump lied to the American people when he said he's a billionaire and he's worth X amount, or two, he lied to the IRS when he said he suffered so much losses that he couldn't pay taxes for the 10 years prior to 2016, which we also learned from the Times reporting that he didn't pay taxes for those 10 years. One of those is true. He either lied to the American people or he lied to the IRS. To me, both are criminal, but really technically only lying to the IRS is criminal. Right. Lying to the public is something that probably should be held against him when people go to the ballot box. And we got a comment on here. You were in tax law. All the money you spend on personal stuff can, in a way, be written off as expenses. Show losses. Do you reinvest it or not pay taxes on profits? But that's not the question here, because Trump didn't just write off his expenses in addition to his haircuts over, I forget how much, over $1 million for just his, or not $1 million, but tens of thousands of dollars for his haircuts while he was filming with The Apprentice. So this isn't about him writing off his expenses. This is about him lying on his tax returns in order to skirt what he owes. And then I don't want to take too much time, but he has $300 million in debt coming due in the next 3 years. Now, I'm sure you've heard this, and it's true. This is a national security threat. So I hope folks take this seriously. And you said earlier, you don't think his supporters will be affected at all by the Times reporting, but do you think independent voters will read these numbers and say, well, wait a minute, I paid more than $750. And wait a minute, if I owe $300 million, I would hope folks wouldn't vote for me to be the highest office holder in the land.
Yeah, I mean, but again, these are the same people that thought that he was the better choice because he was a billionaire. You know, they they saw in 2016, they saw it as he's this accomplished businessman. He's a billionaire. So of course he'll know how to handle the economy.
Yeah.
So maybe if they use that same logic that was a bit off last election cycle, I wonder now how that will then fare for tonight during the debate, but then also too in the decisions that we all have to then make, in the next few weeks, as people are voting, because it is something that it's disingenuous, and I just don't understand why this has to always be an issue every time, like leading up to the election, when they start talking about taxes, why there's an issue, one, for him to want to share that information with the American people, because we're all supposed to file taxes. And he's in a different tier than the majority of American people. So I don't understand why he would have a problem sharing that information. Well, I mean, I don't know.
He's got law school debt. He's got as much debt as me. More. He's got more debt than me. I thought I had a lot of debt. He got so much debt he had to go overseas to get loans because American banks wouldn't fool with them anymore. If you're just joining us, we're talking about Trump's taxes, because the man didn't pay him for 10 years. And then when he did pay him, he only paid $750 worth of taxes. And if that gets you up in arms, it should, because I imagine the bulk of you watching here today paid more than Trump in taxes in the past 10 years. So, I mean, this is the fact that we don't know who he owes $300 million to. That should make all of us say, what promises has he made to these other countries?
Right. And when did all this money I would love to know the time. I would like to see the receipts.
Yeah, I mean, because you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute. I feel like you're about to say, where did you accumulate all this debt?
Right, that's what I want. I mean, because while you're in office, I don't understand how. Well, that's what I'm saying. I would like to know the timeline, because what debt could you have been accruing while in office? But again, we know that they've been. I was just going to say, they've done things very non-traditionally in terms of how they've been operating in the White House, and, still doing business. So so it goes without saying, we know that there's business deals being made. But it would be nice to know where, it would just be nice to know, like, who is owed money.
Who is owed money? That is, yes.
Yeah.
That is a good question that I think every person that intends to vote deserves to know. Who does the president of the United States owe $300 million? We're not talking he lost $20 in the card game, right? We're not talking he lost $1,000 gambling on sports. The dude owes $300 million. To who, for what? And I think until that question is answered, so his response is, well, the New York Times reporting was riddled with gross inaccuracies. But there's an easy way that he could just disprove the Times reporting. And what's that? Release his taxes. But now we don't really need him to, because they went out and got him. So he talks out of it, like, both sides of his face. Because on one end, he said it's fake news. But on the other end, he says, well, the Times illegally obtained these documents. Well, wait a minute. Did they illegally obtain fake stuff? Or did they illegally obtain what's actually real? You don't get it both ways. It's not fake news and it was illegally obtained. It's one or the other. So, that's just me. But We can leave that there.
Yeah.
It's fake news.
It's going to be interesting tonight for the debate.
I'm excited.
Just that simple wording, what you just said, that's my issue, is that that they said that there will be no fact checking by the moderator tonight. That's a problem.
Well,
that is a huge problem. You need to fact check. I don't understand why you wouldn't okay, let me say it like this. A prominent news media outlet, they would fact check on live TV. They would fact check. I mean, they would fact check. You have a team of people in the back running information. So it's not as if any of this will come at a surprise. You can also run a 3-minute delay, however you want to do it. So for them to say that they're not going to fact check, I honestly hope that for the upcoming debates that we learn from this tonight. And again, I just want to point it out, tonight is being done with a Fox News reporter. It's the first debate. It's troubling. It's troubling.
Presidential debates is our last topic, but
sorry, I just wanted to point that out, Cliff, because that wording that you use is like they're gonna use that. This is how we're in situations that we're in right now.
Yeah.
But go ahead. We can go to something else. I just wanted to point that out.
So we leave that Trump taxes to the news last week from Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron that there is not going to be an indictment on any of the 3 officers, Cosgrove, Mattingly, Hankison, for any charges related to the death of Breonna Taylor. Now, prior to early this morning, late last night, we didn't even know why there was the only charge that was brought was a charge of wanton endangerment. And essentially it was wanton endangerment because Officer Hankinson fired shots into the walls of Breonna Taylor's neighbors. Essentially, he was charged with not aiming directly at Breonna Taylor because he shot blindly through her window. And we learned today that the reason there was only one officer charged, and the only officer that was charged was not charged with the death of Breonna Taylor, because Daniel Cameron did not present to the grand jury charges for the death of Breonna Taylor. I mean, if that's not the biggest slap in the face, because I watched the entire press conference this guy gave last week. He pretty much lied and tried to put it off on the grand jury. And thank God you have these brave jury members. They filed a complaint saying that he mischaracterized the work that they did. And they said he didn't accurately portray the evidence that was presented to us. So his hand was forced. And now we're going to actually see some, we don't know what yet, but he alleges that he's going to release more of the documents related to this grand jury, the grand jury process. But the idea that a person could shoot blindly into an apartment, kill an innocent person because officers who did not request the warrant, that was 2 other officers, not these 3 that were serving it, because 3 officers serving a warrant had no idea who lived in the apartment and did not know who or what to expect when they arrived. And their negligence led to the death of someone, and they were essentially acting with impunity. And this is, again, why people have been marching in the streets, because officers kill, maim, beat Black and brown people really on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And they do so without ever really being in fear of being held accountable by the law.
Yeah. Well, and it's... Oh, go ahead.
No, I said we had a comment the last time. It's related to the last topic. It said maybe the networks airing the debate will fact check and have corrections scrolling on the bottom. So the cable news networks, this is true, cable news networks might do that. Yeah, but the problem is the Commission on Presidential Debates has said that it's not the responsibility of the moderators to fact check contemporaneously right there in the moment. And that's essentially the bone that we have to pick with the commission, because what else is a moderator there for? Anybody, if they're just there to ask questions, just let the audience ask questions. If they're just there,
right, we might as well just really. But I mean, going back to the thing with the grand jury, the biggest issue I've had in this, one of the biggest issues is lack of transparency, lack of urgency to bring justice, to Breonna Taylor and her family. And again, it's just, to me, I feel as if like Daniel Cameron, he tried to make it seem as if everyone else that was protesting, they made this political, and then it was us against them, like it's liberals, Democrats that are making this political. But in fact, he did that very thing when he decided to go and lie to the American people last week. Like you said, Cliff, it wasn't just last week's press conference. It was also during the Republican conference, the convention.
Yep.
He spent a good portion of his speech on national TV during a primetime spot, refusing to acknowledge what it is that they had authority to do in terms of bringing justice to Breonna Taylor and her family. And I just want to remind people, he's a prosecutor. So I just don't understand why, if they had all the evidence. So I don't understand why it is that they didn't decide to hold a grand jury earlier than the time that they did. And then for now the grand jury to have to file charges against him, and then explaining that in fact he misrepresented the case. Like it's this whole system is just like, what's frustrating is that it's an endless cycle in terms of not being able to feel as if you can trust the people that have been put in these positions to actually do their jobs. I just saw this comment here. Yes, I know. But yeah, I mean, it's very unfortunate in terms of what just happened in Louisville, Kentucky. And I hope that there will be accountability for what just happened, because this is what I do think will happen, because we're in the middle of an election year. Well, it's almost over. Is that then this just gets drawn out. It gets drawn out, and then it's forgotten, unfortunately, because it seems as if unless you stay in the headlines, then no one there's no public recognition of what happened, then she'll be forgotten about. And so and oh, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Yeah, and so that I think that's one of the things that I fear most, in terms of, I know that the grand jury, they, like you said, they made the complaint, but I don't know what that means, because seeing what will actually happen in terms of like the election, who will hold fire to them, like to that, like to the city, and to the prosecutor's office, like the district attorney, like who's going to do anything?
I don't think anybody. And this is a good point. We got comment we got here.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the fact that they declared a state of emergency before releasing the decision makes it clear that they knew they messed up. And sadly, I don't think Attorney General Daniel Cameron believes he messed up. I think he knows that what he did was wrong, but he also knows that what he did is politically advantageous for him. I think he knows that what he is going to benefit him in the long run, and that's why because he doesn't care. But he got caught, and that's why he's forced now to. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the grand jury decision in Kentucky. The grand jury decision in Kentucky. I see the comment. In Kentucky, to not indict any of the 3 officers involved in killing Breonna Taylor. And I've heard all kinds of comments from Charles Barkley's stupid ass comments saying, well, her boyfriend did shoot at the cops. I mean, I don't know any gun owner that would not have acted the same way. You have unknown people removing the front door from your home off of its hinges, and they didn't identify themselves. So yeah, why else do you own firearms but to protect your castle? So, okay. I don't know. It's quite just to hear the range of commentary related to to see the range of commentary related to the decision that Cameron made to not actually bring charges against these other 2 officers. And that's the crazy thing. Anyone else, you ask your friend, if you know someone that's been in the system, or if you're a law student and you got to clerk, or if you're an attorney and you're watching, or if you just have friends or people who've been in the system, you can get indicted for anything. If you're a prosecutor, if you want an indictment, you can get the indictment. You could get someone indicted for crossing the street while eating mustard instead of ketchup, because you can. And the fact that he never even presented the charges for murder, we're talking negligent homicide, criminal murder, manslaughter. He could have presented charges for for a range of things, and he chose not to. And again, we can't discount that he made that decision with political motivations behind that decision.
Right. Exactly. And that's why I was saying that I feel as if, like, for him to have come out at the very beginning and say, and like do this whole, like placing the blame on the other side, like placing it on Democrats and protesters, saying that we in fact were making this political. He did that very same thing. He did that.
The city of Louisville, a week before this decision was made, agreed to pay the estate, the family, $12 million.
Yeah.
Which is the largest settlement in the history of that city, which was an acknowledgement of wrongdoing by the force. So we're saying on one end, the city's acknowledging to a tune of $12 million that they effed up. But 1 week later, the state's attorney general, the state's politically motivated attorney general, Daniel Cameron, is saying, well, none of the officers did anything wrong or worth me pursuing charges. And the reason, how did Cameron conclude that the police identified themselves? Because again, this is what really makes this case, because the police entered the home after never acknowledging who they were. Nobody knew who they were. He says he used independent witnesses. Well, let's look at those independent witnesses. Let's look at the record, because people always say, well, you should actually do your research. Yeah, well, we did it. And guess what? The one witness of the 12 that they interviewed, the one witness who said they heard the officers announce that they're police, only did so on the third interview, because the night after Breonna Taylor was murdered, that same witness said, that same witness, like the 11 other witnesses, said, never heard the police announce themselves. Second interview, never heard the police announce themselves. Why'd they interview this person for a third time? And on the third interview, that witness said, I heard the police announce themselves. So clearly something's going on there. And that's what Daniel Cameron presented to the grand jury. And that was sufficient for him to say, well, since the police announced who they were, that's enough evidence to say they're undeserving of being charged with the crime. And that's disgusting, because if any of us, that wouldn't be enough for the rest of us. So why are police not held accountable? Why are they above the law? What's the point of having police? So and people who are above the law?
Right. And the other thing is, too, is recognizing that his job was to bring criminal charges. You know, it doesn't matter what civil suit was brought and what was decided. It was that he had a job to do, and he didn't do that. And his job
was to bring the charges, not to look at ways not to bring charges. Never heard of a prosecutor finding ways to not bring charges.
Exactly. Or just deciding that, okay, justice has been served. No, it has not. You know, because the family at the press conference the week before before they held the grand jury, the family said at the press conference that wasn't enough, and they didn't want it. They didn't ask for the money, you know. But it's just now it's again just it shows that there are no checks and balances in terms of what it is that police are able to do. Did the volume go out?
Okay.
Not sure what happened.
There we go.
Hold on.
Okay, I think we lost Shonda. I still see you on here. You can't hear me either? Can you? Sorry.
Let me request
you guys hear me
come back in. Sorry, guys.
All right, Shonda's rejoining.
Okay.
There we go. Now I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, we're back.
I'm not sure.
Strange. You got kicked off.
Okay, I don't know what's happening.
All right. Maybe it was a sign that Daniel Cameron is the worst human being ever. We should have picked some fun topics, because the next one's gonna get us just as upset.
Oh.
But we're gonna look at the selection for Donald Trump to replace the legendary Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg with Amy Coney Barrett, Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals judge. And we talked about the hypocrisy last week with her passing, and Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, acknowledging, you know what, if Donald Trump puts forth a nominee, he'll get a vote. And apparently he's going to get a vote before the election, which would be hyper speed, acting in hyper speed. But
I wasn't sure what your thoughts were on Amy Barrett being the selection
from Donald Trump.
You know,
Big Brother's listening. Yeah,
that's right. So I have just been. I'm in a place where I had said at the beginning. I mean, we talked about this a little bit before knowing who would be selected.
Yeah.
But I have not under his eye. I mean, I did not want to give any weight to this, because just thinking in terms of like, well, I had that chart now in my head. Like, it's all I can see is that chart that you put up last week. I think it was the one from NPR, and it was showing like it was over 200 days before it was over 200 days
Before
before.
70 days after Scalia died before the election.
Exactly. So
47 days after
Justice
Justice Ginsburg died.
yeah, and so just seeing how now they're gonna try and like rush someone in.
Yeah.
In less than 3 months, and yet we have an election.
6 weeks.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, because I'm just thinking, like, normally you have, like, I'm just saying, less than 6 months, less than 3,
Okay.
less than 90 days. And it's just like all of this is taking place at the same time in the middle of one, of a pandemic, two, when we have all this stuff going on with the election. Like, nothing, like, there's so many things that are up in the air right now. And then to say that you want to rush a Supreme Court nominee, you have to still hold hearings.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. I mean, in terms of, they vetted her apparently, but it's just now there's other things that need to be resolved. But yet we're saying, we need to put someone else in that position before the inauguration. And look, at this point, I'm not here to say that she's not qualified. She is. Does her policies align with things?
Based on what? Because she's on the Seventh Circuit. She wasn't a judge before getting placed on the Seventh Circuit.
Listen, all I'm saying is, in terms of her as a nominee, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot to be questioned in terms of the people that Trump has put on the court. So I personally,
The Supreme Court. He's installed hundreds of federal judges
that are not qualified. And so then to say that we're going to now put her on the court, it's just, this will set I'm like really nervous. I don't even want to put the energy out there. You know how I feel in terms of, like, I don't even want to speak it, that he could win. And so even right now, y'all, I am getting hot. Just getting hot. I have a long sleeve on, but I'm getting hot just thinking about it. My hands are starting to sweat, actually. It's a lot of information. But yeah. I'm not I honestly, it's scary, because I know that if she does in fact get through, this definitely this breaks the access, right? In terms of healthcare. And and that's one of the things that at this point, like, Dems really need to run a strong campaign in terms of talking about what this means if in fact they do allow her to be placed on the court. Like, that's the first thing they're going to go after. They've been going after it since forever, but we all know that if she's allowed to then be put on the court, they're going to go after healthcare. They're also then going to go after, they're going to definitely try and make changes in terms, go ahead.
Well,
they don't have to do anything special to go after healthcare. Because remember, November 10th, the court's already going to hear
they're already
going to hear
the ACA,
the Affordable Care Act case. So it's already on the books.
Docket. Yeah.
She is, for those of you just joining us, talking about Amy Coney Barrett, Donald Trump's pick to succeed Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed 2 weeks ago,
Friday. And no, so I don't think it'll be difficult to finally put the last death nail into the Affordable Care Act, but I'm actually fine with that. Because if she does that, then now the onus is on the Republicans to actually, so they allowed this to happen. One, Joe Biden, it's incumbent upon Joe Biden tonight to acknowledge that the reason that the court is hearing this is because he directed the Justice Department to fight the pre-existing conditions element of the Affordable Care Act in the courts. And that's why they're there in the first place. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, I thought the law needed to be improved and they refused to do it. So now they gut the whole thing. Okay, what are you going to replace it with? So it'll just show, like, not only all he cared about doing was upending the legacy of Barack Obama. He didn't care about doing anything to actually improve our lives. He cared about, one, doing something about his $300 million of debt that we learned about thanks to the New York Times, and also just destroying the legacy of a man that he couldn't be more jealous of, a black man that clearly has more intellectual capacity and skill and likability than him. That's really what has been his number one goal in the White House, is to try to do whatever he can to destroy the legacy of this brilliant black man who he can't hold the candle to. That's how I see what he's done in there. But I mean, as far as Amy Barrett is concerned, I don't think she's any like legal super weight. I think she's a partisan through and through. I mean, she's such a partisan that she believes that Judge Roberts, the Chief Justice, John Roberts, was grossly mistaken when he said that the mandate part of the Affordable Care Act, that when he argued that it acted as a tax, because he wrote the opinion, he said it acted as a tax, and clearly Congress has the authority to tax, Article 1, that they were wrong. So I don't see it as okay. I don't see that as a big. I don't see her addition to the court as being much different than Neil Gorsuch or Brett Kavanaugh. I think she's another political hack, and she's going to get in there and gut Roe v. Wade, and she's going to gut the Affordable Care Act, and she's going to gut a whole lot of protections for women and folks and LGBTQ plus folks. So people can say, "Oh, yeah. She says she's not going to allow her faith to dictate how she judges," but she already has.
Exactly.
Like she's going to question on her record, possibly not by the Republicans, but she has a record of allowing her faith to dictate how she interprets the law. And how she interprets the law is with a Judeo-Christian mindset. And that Judeo-Christian mindset is essentially that if you have the same sexual organs, you don't deserve the same rights as other people. That's the way she sees it. I mean, I really don't see how people can interpret it any other way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, her record's clear. I mean, it's not. There's not a lot. It's not a lot to discuss. Really, it's like, well, this is her view. There's nothing to defend. It's like she's very proud about it. It's like, okay, be proud. But I'll say what I said last week. If Biden wins, he should put 4 judges on the court. Period. Next question. I hope he says that tonight, because the Supreme Court. Hey, let's just get to it, because I'm done with Amy Barrett. So she's worthless. So.
Oh my goodness.
Tonight is the first.
But the thing is that we still have to recognize what would actually happen. In fact, and.
Yeah, she's going to gut protection,
like all of those things,
women, all those things.
Right, all of those things are in jeopardy, and so what I guess what the point I'm trying to make is that right now we have to make sure that that's the message that we're putting out there, is because it's not good enough to then say, oh, okay, they're just going to gut the Affordable Care Act, but then as much as they've been saying they want to do away with that, okay, then what is the alternative?
They don't have one.
They don't have one, exactly. And so it's just acknowledging. Go ahead.
They've never shown a willingness to support poor people, and that's who's really going to be affected when Roe v. Wade is overturned, because there's not going to be less abortion in America. There's going to be no legal or less legal abortions conducted in America. But again, that's only going to affect mostly Black and brown poor people, because they're going to be the ones that have to find these other means of having this procedure carried out, back alley abortions, where wealthy people, they're still going to get their abortions. They're just going to be able to go other places to get it done. They're going to be able to have doctors conduct the procedure like private doctors, or they'll have enough money to go to Canada or to go to Europe or to go wherever they can get them done. So there's not going to be less abortions with Amy Coney Barrett. There's just going to be less legal ones.
Mm-hmm. It's safe.
Less safe options. That's
Yes.
a better way. Less safe options.
Yeah, less safe options.
So tonight is the first presidential debate between Donald Trump
That you picked.
and Joe Biden. What? I mean, I can't help that that's his face. He's always yelling. What you want me to do? He's like a perpetual. That's just, I mean, that's my guy.
In the picture that you picked of our next president, like, could have picked something else, but leave it there.
The picture of
on Instagram is not. He could have picked a better photo. That's all I'm saying. But continue.
So, the 6 topics that the commission released, it's going to be Trump and Biden's records, COVID-19, the Supreme Court, the economy, race and violence in our cities, and election integrity. And I believe that the debate is really about 2 topics on that list. I think the debate is about COVID-19 response and the economy. Because really, Trumpers have, I think, whether you're a Trumper or whether you're a Biden supporter, I think you're pretty strongly in your camp when it comes to the records of these 2 individuals. I think the same is true for race and violence. I think you have a view. Either if you're a Biden supporter, you're probably fine making the statement Black Lives Matter, right? I mean, I think that's a fair statement. The majority of Biden supporters can make that statement. And I think probably about less than 2% of Trump supporters will make that same statement. Maybe even less than 2. I don't know. Again, this is not a scientific. That wasn't a scientific.
Tested this out.
But I mean, if you're supporting Trump, then you're completely fine with all of his racism and xenophobia. So you're probably not saying the words Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
But oh, brother, I don't know if you saw the comment.
I did.
So my argument is, do you disagree? I think it comes down to those 2 topics because for independent voters, I think those are the 2 that they can be swayed on. I don't see them being swayed on the court, their records, race and violence, or election integrity.
The first one you said? I
say COVID-19 and the economy.
No, but the first one you said you don't see them being persuaded on is, what was it?
Any of the other 4. So Trump and Biden records.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I'm also, like, I've been saying this from the beginning.
Yeah.
I honestly, at this point, I mean, we're less than 40 days away from the election.
I don't even know how many days it is, actually. How many days?
Yeah, I mean, today's September 29th. The election is November 3rd. We're really less than 35 days. So all I'm gonna say is that if you don't know who you're voting for, and if you're still in this limbo about voting for Trump, I don't get it. I don't. And I really don't think that there's much to, I mean, what do you need to be persuaded about? I mean, and the reason why I say that is because, like, the people that are supporting Trump, like, for instance, like tonight when we watched the debate, really the debate is for, like, for me, I'm just watching the debate just to see what foolery is getting ready to happen, like how Trump will spin something, also to see exactly how I'm just saying, like, I'm really interested to see like what his response is about the taxes, because that's new information. Like, to me, everything else, like, they've both had an opportunity to get in front of, like, they've had an opportunity to address like what their COVID-19 response is. I mean, the president right now hasn't done much. So you've already told me what your plan is.
Yeah, I'm looking for something very different. I'm going to answer this question. We got, how do you think Biden will hold up against Trump? I'm going to answer that question in a second. Mm-hmm. What I'm looking for tonight is how the candidates separate themselves on really those two issues. Mm-hmm. Because
No, go ahead.
Because I'm not sure how effective Biden will be at painting a picture that the successes gained pre-COVID, economic successes, that I'm not sure how effective Biden will be at explaining to the American people that, had absent Trump's failures in responding to this pandemic, the economic successes would have been able to continue, or the downfall would have been less severe. I'm not sure how effective he'll be at that. But to answer the question, how do I think Biden will hold up against Trump? I think he's heard the commentary. I think he's prepared for Trump to make some off-the-wall, off-color comments. And I think he's prepared for Trump to attempt to get under his skin intentionally. Mm-hmm. And I think Biden is hopefully mature enough not to take the bait. I think he knows when someone's trying to open a door, and it's on Biden to close the door right back in his face.
Right.
And it's like, how well is he going to be able to pivot away from certain paths that will get him into trouble?
Right. That's what I think it mainly boils down to. He's going to have to be very quick on his feet. We're a different time now, but he's really going to have to be quick on his feet.
Yeah.
For tonight. But I actually think the opposite. You know, Joe Biden ran for president, and he didn't win the first time. I mean, but he became Barack Obama's running mate in 2008. And in 2008, second time. But okay, second time. But the point I'm trying to make is that during that second time, when he did run and he became Barack Obama's VP select, we were also going through a recession. And so the fact that he was able, like, he's had experience and he knows what that looks like. And so for me, I think that he's going to have to drive home what that looked like at that time, and how that is and how that compares to the moment that we're in now. That's what they didn't do well. I will say they didn't do well in showing that during the Dem convention. And so I hope that they drive that point home tonight, because you're right. Like, we do need to know that if in fact he is the next president, we want to know that we have someone that we can trust to get us through the pandemic, and not just saying, adapt to this new normal. That people need more than just adapt to this new normal. I mean, this is real life right now. So, I mean, there are people. I mean, I just want to point it out that after this year, you know, there will be people that quite possibly could very well be evicted from their homes. So, you know, we need to know that there's going to be some form of relief and protections for people.
Yeah. Now, while I think that this debate is made or broken on those two segments, the COVID section and the economy section, I am going to be very unsurprised when we do get to the race and violence in our cities segment, and they say, you know, you are not covert when you're.
Sorry. Guys, I'm typing. I was trying to let him know 3 minutes because, you know, Cliff likes to have us get cut off.
Anyhow,
closing.
This will be my last comment that we can make for that. So, my head is, you know, what was I saying? I'm sick,
We're
y'all.
mentioning the when we get to the protest part.
Yes, sorry, I didn't say protest, but I knew what you were talking about. So, racing. When we get to the race and violence, I fully anticipate Trump is going to try to make an argument that, well, if you elect Joe Biden, you're going to see violence like this all across the country. But what Joe Biden needs to say immediately is, this is your country right now. You are the president, and this violence is taking place right now in your country. If Joe Biden doesn't say that with force, and I hope he cuts him off, because, you know, see, the problem is Trump is one of those really loud, like he's got, I don't know how we get this lung power, because the man ain't never ran a mile in his life, but he's got some lungs on him. It's tough to cut off someone that's louder than you. Biden's got to be loud and talk over him. I'm talking, as soon as he starts to say some nonsense like, Trump, this is your America, and it's happening now in your America. I hope he cuts him off and talks over him.
Yeah.
I'll finish there so we have some time to wrap up. As always, we've been saying each week, please register to vote and make sure your friends are registered to vote. You can check it with iwillvote.com, or you can go to vote.org. Those links will help you out. It's iwillvote.com if you want to check registration, or vote.org.
Yes.
We're not getting paid because obviously these are nonprofits. They're just trying to help people get registered. We just care about the future of this country. That's the only reason we can.
Right. And I want to encourage people to ask, do not make the assumption that your friends or family members are registered to vote. Last Friday night, I was sitting in the kitchen with some of my family members, and guess what? They were not registered. They were not registered at their new address.
Oh, yeah, that matters too.
Yes, so people need to remember, like, if you moved, you need to register to vote. Some of them had never voted, so I'm not here to judge anybody. No one is here to judge you, but if you would like to participate, you need to make sure that you register to vote. You need to do that this week, because you also have to mail the application in a lot of states. So just want to point that out.
I will be live tweeting tonight's political endeavor. I'll be live tweeting the debate. So if you want to check that out, there goes my Twitter handle, the Mason Report, at the Mason Report. It'll be a bunch of retweets from other folks too. But assuming I have the strength, if I just go on like a 20-minute hiatus, and that just means my head can't take it, and I either went to bed or we will see. But
I will be on there as well at the same time.
What's yours?
Mine is. Oh, I need to write it in.
I can.
Hold on. There you go.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yes, I mean, it's not as if we don't talk on these social channels, but yes, I will be on there.
Bam. It's Trishonda on Twitter. It's Trishonda. Did I spell it right? I can't see the whole thing.
Yeah.
2 seconds.
You did.
Well, thank you all for joining. Next week we can talk about this country's refusal to give me medicine to fight through this COVID battling. Thank you for being with us. You'll be on this journey with us, and we'll see you next time.
All right.